Dark flow and air transport, heaven and earth cry, gods and humans cry, thousand tribulations make all things difficult, rebellion in the divine realm, Jialing Pass, twin divine battle, the destruction of the seven beasts brings peace to the world, the transmission of the divine position reveals the truth. Chapter 1. Soul Awakening. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Let me introduce myself. I am Xiao Yunzhou, the Dean of the Soul Hall College, and the 89-level strong martial arts department Soul Master. Next, I will awaken the soul for you. After speaking, Xiao Yunzhou gestured with his eyes to the child at the edge to come forward, and then urged his soul power to gently lift it in the child's shocked gaze. The golden soul power surrounded him, and the boy only felt something coming out of his body. As expected, in the next second, a huge Qinghuan bird suddenly emerged from behind, and a wan cry shook everyone present, even Xiao Yunzhou frowned. At this moment, the little boy's eyes also turned blue. Another one with innate soul power, what a ghost today. After grumbling, Xiao Yunzhou put down the little boy, leaned down, and asked, "What's your name?" "Hello senior, my name is Qinghuan." Xiao Yunzhou nodded and placed him behind him, then focused on a handsome child with silver hair, who was not sure if he was a man or a woman. That little man. Little girl, right. You come over here. Upon hearing Xiao Yunzhou call herself a little girl, the child pouted and was about to reveal those 2 ounces of flesh to prove that she was a man. Qinghuan rushed up from behind and stopped his movements, shaking his head helplessly. Why is this child so foolish? Qinghuan turned her head and smiled apologetically, "Senior, Guanling is a boy." After hearing this, Xiao Yunzhou regained his composure and helped the frame of his glasses to ease his embarrassment, saying, This. That. Okay, let's continue. Qinghuan touched Guanling's head, and Guanling squinted her eyes as if enjoying it. When the ceremony began, Guanling's right hand began to itch inexplicably. As the golden light spread throughout her body, a bow appeared on her right hand. If it were just an ordinary bow, Xiao Yunzhou wouldn't have been startled to drop his chin. However, the bow in Guanling's hand is clearly a legendary Guanling divine bow, and it is said that even the unique arrow of this bow is invisible, rumored to be called the invisible arrow. Guanling looked at the soul in her hand and instinctively pulled the bowstring. At the moment the string opened, Guanling clearly felt an arrow appearing in her hand. To others, there was nothing on the bowstring, but through Guanling's eyes, she saw a sparkling invisible arrow. Guanling aimed at a wall and with a swoosh, an invisible arrow shot out, firmly piercing into the wall. Finally, everyone saw the true face of the invisible arrow. At the position of the arrow, ice crystals began to spread around, and in front of everyone, they only spread a small area before stopping. Xiao Yunzhou doesn't think much of this. After all, the level is relatively low, and it's not a big deal if the invisible arrow's power is weaker. What he didn't expect was that 2 consecutive people were born with full soul power. Guanling looked at her soul with satisfaction and turned to Qinghuan's arms, saying, "Big Qingniao, I also have a soul." Qinghuan doted on Guanling's head and said in a childish tone, Aling is the best." Xiao Yunzhou, who is over 50 years old but has no other half, selectively ignored this scene and planned to make a quick decision. Xiao Yunzhou is also very speechless, lacking manpower to personally awaken his soul. As a result, he even encountered early love, which is a huge blow to his single self. Continuing to awaken the soul of the following few people, but the result was not satisfactory. Either it was the soul too much, or it was the innate zero soul power that could not be cultivated. Only Qinghuan and Guanling had extraordinary talents, and the soul was also known as the top grade. After sending away the others, Xiao Yunzhou left Qinghuan and Guanling behind, along with 4 children brought from several welfare institutions. The situation was surprisingly the same, and these 4 were all top-notch soul boosting and innate full soul power. Xiao Yunzhou bent down and looked at Qinghuan and Guanling, saying, "I ask you, are you willing to join the Soul Hall? Upon hearing the 3 words, Soul Hall, both of them couldn't conceal their longing in their eyes. When I was living in the welfare institution before, I often heard the dean talk about the Soul Hall. According to the dean, a large part of the funds in the welfare institution were donated by the Soul Hall, otherwise the welfare institution would have closed down long ago and they would have been displaced. The 2 nodded at the same time and said, I am willing. Xiao Yunzhou nodded in satisfaction. It would be a pity if such talents were not trained. Okay, let me introduce it, Xiao Yunzhou said as he looked at the 4 people around him: Golden Crocodile, Divine Soul, Golden Crocodile King, Congenital Full Soul Power, a male lion, with a fiery soul, possessing innate full soul power, Qianjun, Soul Coiled Dragon Staff, Congenital Full Soul Power, Demon Subduing, Soul Twisting Dragon Staff, Congenital Full Soul Power. Chapter 2. Departure. You are listening at novelfull.audio. These 6 people were not reserved either, and soon they got together. Xiao Yunzhou sat in the yard and took a sip of tea, watching these people play around. After drinking the tea in his hand, Xiao Yunzhou stood up and patted the dust on his buttocks, coughing lightly. After hearing this, all 6 Qinghuan people obediently gathered around. In their eyes, this man with strong soul power had become their center. Xiao Yunzhou looked into a distant forest and said, although you are all at level 10 of innate full soul power, you must not be proud. Moreover, you have not attached the first soul ring yet. If this continues for a long time, it will affect your cultivation. Therefore, let me hunt soul beasts and obtain soul rings now. The 6 of them also heard a lot about the relationship between soul masters and soul beasts in the welfare institution, so there is no need for Xiao Yunzhou to explain too much. After all, they are all level 10 soul masters. Xiao Yunzhou does not plan to go to the Star Forest, which is too dangerous, and can only choose the Sunset Forest, which has more low-level soul beasts. The 6 of them boarded the carriage that Xiao Yunzhou had arrived in, but could only accommodate up to 5 people. Including Xiao Yunzhou driving the horse in front, there were still 6 people left. Just as everyone looked at each other, Jean Crocodile took the initiative to say, "It's okay, I can sit on the top of the carriage. Just sit down below." As soon as the words fell, the others noticed that Qinghuan and Guanling had entered the carriage first. After Qinghuan sat down, Guanling sat directly on Qinghuan's lap and excitedly waved his hand to the bewildered few people outside the carriage, saying, "Everyone come in. I'll just sit on the legs of the big Qingniao. Golden Crocodile, come in and take a seat. Golden Crocodile." Xiao Yunzhou couldn't bear to watch any more and sat silently at the front of the carriage. The others entered the carriage one after another and coincidentally looked at Qinghuan and Guanling. His heart couldn't help but wonder. What is the relationship between these 2 people? Qinghuan and Guanling didn't notice the strange gazes from the others either. Guanling leaned against Qinghuan's arms, and Qinghuan gently supported Guanling's head, not forgetting to touch it. That way, if it weren't for knowing that Guanling was male, it might have been true in fact. What they don't know is that it's not impossible for a man to be a man. It's just that Qinghuan and Guanling are still young and don't understand profound love, so they only consider it as a brother loving their younger brother, and others think the same way. Only Lei Yuxiu Zio Yunzu can feel the feelings of Qinghuan and Guanling buried in the bottom of their hearts without being noticed by themselves. On the way, the lion curiously asked, "How did you get to the welfare home?" Jean Crocodile replied, "A few years ago, during the Star Wars, our village happened to be in the conflict zone. The first battle broke out, and we were the first to die. More than 300 people in the village died under the hooves of horses, but I managed to escape and survive." Qinghuan said, "Me and Aling too. Uncle instructed me to take care of Aling before we passed away." Guanling's face also showed a sad expression. The demon subdued and said, "We escaped the catastrophe, but the defeated soldiers who retreated from the heavens, to village, vented their anger and slaughtered all our parents. My brother and I hid in the cellar to escape the disaster. Although the Soul Hall did not want war to break out, the advice did not attract attention. Afterwards, because the two empires were evenly matched and only suffered losses, they did not intervene again. Sitting in front of the car, Xiao Yunzhou suddenly said, clearly remembering that Pope Qian Xianglin of the Soul Hall wrote 100 letters of advice to stop the war overnight, but was mercilessly burned by the two empires. Helpless, he had to establish some welfare homes to help those civilians in distress. When they arrived at the Sunset Forest, everyone got off one by one and saw the soldiers patrolling beside the gate. Xiao Yunzhou took out his token and the soldiers opened the gate. Everyone followed behind Xiaoyun Island into the Sunset Forest. At first, they could only see some soul beasts, small lizards, and some plants with unique appearances. If it weren't for Qingluan's strong resistance, Guanling would really want to taste each one. Due to the awakening of the soul, everyone can now feel the existence of soul power and find that the deeper they go, the more abundant their soul power is, and the higher the cultivation level of soul beasts. Xiao Yunzu looked at the soul beast as its age had reached and began to shift from vertical depth to horizontal search. On the road, I saw some plants that have been cultivated for 100 years, but there were no soul beasts around. Based on years of experience, Xiao Yunzhou immediately judged that there were powerful soul beasts nearby. Chapter 3. Ice Armor Beast. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The third soul skill, the Golden Fortress, at the foot of Xiaoyun Island, the third soul ring lit up and quickly rotated around his waist. A large circle appeared at the feet of the 6 people, and in the next moment, a shining golden cover rose up from the ground to surround them. Xiao Yunzhou had already put on a fighting posture and turned sideways, saying, "Stay inside and don't come out. There are soul beasts approaching quickly nearby." In fact, the 6 people inside really want to say that they can't get out even if they want to. The covers are too sturdy. With a golden light shining from the corner of Xiao Yunzhou's eyes, and the blessing of his unique eye skills, he successfully discovered the soul beast lurking more than 10 meters away. The soul beast felt its position detected and stopped hiding. With a thrust from its hind legs, it directly took off in place and rushed towards Xiaoyun Island. Xiao Yunzhou dodged sideways and easily dealt with it. In the open grassland, everyone discovered the true face of the soul beast. Its whole body was pure white and flawless, and its back was covered with thick white armor. Ice-like canine teeth were exposed on its narrow snout, and even its claws were as cold as ice. "It's just right," Xiao Yunzhou chuckled instead of getting angry, because the incoming ice armor beast happened to be a soul beast with a 400-year-old ice attribute, matching the attributes of the light feather. The fourth soul skill, gravity squeezing, is used by Xiao Yunzhou to face the ice-armored beast with one hand. A strange rune appears above the ice-armored beast, and the rune emits golden light to press the ice-armored beast in place. The 6 inexperienced children who were watching the battle stood still, watching the exciting battle scenes. At this moment, the demon-slaying hand held the coiled dragon stick and said disdainfully, "Little soul beast, really vulnerable to a single blow. I don't know if the cover is not soundproof or the demon-slaying sound is too loud." The ice-armored beast seems to hear it halfway and tries to break free from control, running towards everyone regardless of everything. Xiao Yunzhou was about to unleash the soul beast and plan to give it a final blow before ending up handsome and perfect. However, he found that the ice-armored beast had already come to the side of the cover and was pounding hard to break through its defense. The soul beast actually understood human language. The demon slaying inside the cover was almost scared to death. The ghost knew that talking casually would provoke the anger of the ice-armored beast. Although the protective shield formed by Xiao Yunzhou's soul Douluo might be broken by an ice-armored beast with only 400 years of cultivation for a while, the roar of the human soul was not isolated, which was also terrifying. The second soul skill, chain traction, Xiao Yunzhou stood still, with countless black chains extending from the palms of his hands, wrapping the limbs of the ice-armored beast and forcibly pulling it back. When pulled back, the ice-armored beast's eyes were fixed on the demon conquering. Little ghost, wait for the young master. When the ice armor beast was dragged back, Xiao Yunzhou turned his sharp blade into his hand and directly penetrated its throat from behind, ending its brief and extraordinary life in its unwilling cry. At least it was also a soul warrior with 400 years of cultivation, and the ice armor beast probably could close its eyes in peace. Xiao Yunzhou untied his protective shield, and the 6 of them gathered around the body of the ice-armored beast. For some reason, the originally calm and straightforward ice-armored beast couldn't close its eyes, and the demon conqueror felt it looking at him. He couldn't help but tremble and hide behind Qianjun, saying, "Light feather, absorb it quickly. This beast has been watching me strangely." Guangling Bai glanced and sat down in place, guided by Xiao Yunzhou, slowly absorbing the soul ring in front of her. Xiao Yunzhou didn't dare to neglect the recent incident with the ice-armored beast, so he put a layer of cover on the demon subduing and said, "You have really good verbal skills. Why don't you shout twice and lure the surrounding soul beasts over, so you don't have to worry about me looking for them?" "Dean, are you serious? There are also quite a few soul beasts around, isn't it difficult to deal with them all?" "Right," said the demon slaying, scratching his head with embarrassment. Xiao Yunzhou smiled and said, "What are you afraid of?" "Dean, I am an 85-level soul Douluo. Are you afraid of them being just 100-year-old soul beasts?" "Don't worry, shout boldly, open your mouth, everything belongs to me." Jing Xiao Yunzhou didn't refuse to say so when he subdued the demon. He chuckled and roared to the sky, "Listen up to the soul beasts around you. I'll scold your ancestors. First of all, your ancestors are full of graves and crazy. The first generation is foolish, the second generation is wicked, the third and fourth generations have slanted eyes, the fifth and sixth generations have no assholes, and the seventh and eighth generations call me a man, hee. Chapter 4. Confusion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As soon as the words fell, the earth began to shake and dust flew around. The roar of the soul beasts could be clearly heard. Xiao Yunzhou added a layer of shield to the remaining people, thinking that at most 3 to 5 soul beasts would come. However, listening to this posture, it was feared that soul beasts from 100 miles around would come to seek revenge. As soon as Xiao Yunzhou put down his hand to use his soul skill, a fire lizard emerged from the grass, spraying a flame in the direction of Xiao Yunzhou with its mouth open. Xiao Yunzhou easily blocked the attack with just his hands, and in just a moment, an iron-armed praying mantis appeared behind him. Both forearms slashed at Xiao Yunzhou's shoulders together. Just as the distance between the iron arm of the praying mantis and Xiao Yunzhou's shoulders was less than 10 centimeters, Xiao Yunzhou suddenly smiled and exclaimed, "The fourth soul skill is gravity squeezing." The strange rune appeared on the top of the mantis's head again, and it was unexpectedly knocked down to the ground. Seeing that the iron-armed mantis was temporarily controlled, Xiao Yunzhou continued to attack the fire lizard. At the moment when the fire lizard reached out its fist, a red-haired orangutan suddenly descended from the sky in front of it. Xiao Yunzhou had a premonition that this cunning orangutan had been watching battles on the tree in search of the right time, and its intelligence had always been the highest among soul beasts of the same level. Xiao Yunzhou maintained his attacking posture without changing, while the red-haired gorilla descended from the sky without any warning. As soon as he landed, a beam of red light sprayed out from his chest embedded with red crystals, shooting straight at Xiao Yunzhou. The entire process took less than 3 seconds. Xiao Yunzhou didn't have time to change his posture, knowing he couldn't avoid it, so he used his fist to forcefully shatter the beam of red light. The explosion emitted by the collision made Xiao Yunzhou unable to take a few steps back, and the energy waves generated rippled onto the protective cover, causing slight cracks on the golden cover. The unsuccessful surprise attack of the orangutan let out a roar, blaming all the curses of the demon slaying on Xiao Yunzhou and pounding his chest to charge forward once again. Although not as physically strong as the orangutan, Xiao Yunzhou is much more proficient in soul power and skills. Just as the orangutan's fist hit him, Xiao Yunzhou took a step back to avoid it, grabbed the orangutan's fist, and turned around to throw it over the shoulder. The orangutan couldn't help but roar and lay on the ground rolling to relieve the pain. Just as one was solved, the fire lizard and iron-armed mantis rushed forward at the same time, forming a pincer attack from left to right. Xiao Yunzhou looked left and right, and the chain in his palm quickly flew out, tying the fire lizard and iron-armed mantis together. Then, he kicked them into the air and shook them up to 100 meters away with the roar of a tiger. Xiao Yunzhou clapped his hands and thought it was over, but he heard the sound of wild beasts nibbling on it not far away. He turned his head and saw a wild southern bison nibbling on the protective cover he had set up. The people inside the cover were not afraid, but instead approached the cover to observe what the soul beast looked like, especially the light feather. After absorbing the soul ring, they made a ghost face for the bison. The cover already has cracks, and with the depletion of Xiao Yunzhou's soul power, the protective cover is about to be breached. Before Xiao Yunzhou could repair his sword, he quickly ran towards the direction of the southern barbarian buffalo. As soon as he arrived, the buffalo successfully broke through its protective shield, and its sharp horns were about to pierce the light feather. Xiao Yunzhou used all his skills but couldn't withstand this blow in time, so he could only pray that the buffalo would stab him astray. At this extremely critical moment, Qingluan pulled out a small knife from his waist, pushed away the light feather, and the knife spun in his hand, with the blade facing the buffalo. For a moment, the knife and the horns collided with each other, and the buffalo's attack was unexpectedly forced to a halt. Xiao Yunzhou saw Qingluan take the initiative to welcome the 400-year-old southern barbarian buffalo. He thought there was no chance of winning, but he didn't expect Qingluan, whose eyes were shining with blue light, to draw with the southern barbarian buffalo and not collide with each other. During the few seconds of Qingluan's stalemate, Xiao Yunzhou successfully gathered his strength to drive back the southern barbarian bison. Qingluan held a small knife, his hand trembling slightly. It was obvious that he had been injured by the shock. Guanling saw this and covered Qingluan's injured right hand with both hands, trying to relieve Qingluan's pain. Qingluan shook his head and said, "I'm fine." Guanling pursed her lips and got up to grasp the Guanling divine bow. A yellow soul ring appeared at her feet, rhythmically moving, first soul skill, 3 feet frozen. Guanling leaped into mid-air, making a bow-pulling gesture. Countless invisible arrows were perfectly hidden behind him. As he let go of his hand, all the invisible arrows behind Guanling shot towards the southern barbarian buffalo, who was fighting fiercely against Xiao Yunzhu. The buffalo couldn't see the invisible arrows, but Xiao Yunzhu could sense them. He felt both happy and speechless as Guanling had the first soul skill. It was speechless that this guy even fought with humans and soul beasts. Xiao Yunzhou flashed up to Guanling and watched as the southern barbarian bison struggled against the arrow rain from Guanling. The invisible arrow only appeared when it hit an object, so the bison couldn't hide at all. The key was that hitting the invisible arrow not only caused local body freezing and slowed down its speed, but also accompanied an explosion, causing the southern barbarian bison to suffer a lot. Chapter 5. Dafengshou, Salad of Assorted Fresh Vegetables. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiao Yunzhou realized that the power of this soul skill far exceeded his expectations, and couldn't help but think about why. He just reminded him softly, "Don't kill it." Upon hearing Xiao Yunzhou's voice, Guanling seemed to have become more rational. She stopped attacking and slowly descended from mid-air. She looked at Qingluan sitting on the ground next to her, but Qingluan was not a big deal. The injury she had just suffered had helped Xiao Yunzhou recover a lot, and Guanling finally let go of her worries. The crowd had just rested for a few minutes when the surrounding grass began to stir again. Soon, a rampaging magma rhinoceros appeared, with a high cultivation level of at least 900 years. Xiao Yunzhou looked at the rhinoceros that collided and didn't hesitate. He first put a layer of cover on everyone, then turned his hands into tiger claws and grabbed the rhinoceros's horns. With a roar, he lifted the rhinoceros in place, turned around, and threw it out. The rhinoceros didn't have time to respond. After being thrown out by Xiao Yunzhou, it collided with a tree, and its thick shell broke it. You should know that the defense of the magma rhinoceros is one of the best among soul beasts of the same level, on par with the diamond mammoth. Xiao Yunzhou certainly knows this, but the age is not suitable, so he plans to take it out directly. During the period when the rhinoceros adjusted its posture, Xiao Yunzhou exerted his fifth soul skill and a golden halo appeared on his right fist. At the same time, a sword-toothed tiger phantom larger than the magma rhinoceros appeared on his right side, and the roar made the rhinoceros hesitant to charge over. The fifth soul skill, sword-toothed sharp blade, is the powerful right fist of Xiao Yunzhou, which is aimed straight at the rhinoceros. If nothing unexpected happens, this fist is enough to kill the magma rhinoceros. The phantom of the sword-toothed tiger follows Xiao Yunzhou's right fist and pounces towards the opposite side, like an experienced tiger charging and killing its prey. The rhinoceros also felt a deadly threat and could no longer withstand the pressure to escape backwards, making this small distance the key to his escape. As Xiao Yunzhou was about to strike the rhinoceros, there were bursts of bird chirping in the air, and the sound was ethereal and could not dissipate for a long time. Xiao Yunzhou was also stunned for a second, his body paused for a moment, and the black clouds in the air rolled up with thunder. In a moment, the sky had changed greatly. At this moment, Guanling was afraid of the thunder and crawled into Qingluan's arms. "Big Bluebird, I'm afraid, Ling is good, the big green bird is here." Qingluan didn't care about his injuries and gently helped Guanling calm his emotions. It seems that the person who just killed the southern barbarian bison without distinguishing between enemies and friends is not Guanling. Xiao Yunzhou frowned, but did not stop attacking. His fist was getting closer and closer to the magma rhinoceros, and just as he was about to touch the thick armor of the rhinoceros, a blue wind blade shot down from the air. The sharp wind blade, condensed from the strong wind, dodged the wind blade. Xiao Yunzhou also recognized that the soul beast that was acting as a demon in the air was the wind chime bird. However, judging from the power of the wind blade, it only lasted for about 500 years. Xiao Yunzhou looked at the wind chime bird faintly visible in the air and snorted coldly, "Humph, it's great." As he spoke, he directly changed his attack target and aimed his right fist at the sky. The phantom saber-toothed tiger roared and charged towards the sky. At the moment of collision with the target, there was also a terrifying explosion and the mournful cry of a wind chime bird in the air. It was obvious that the just hit had injured it quite a bit. The wind chime bird, relying on its advantage in the air, did not retreat. Then, a tornado erupted, and Xiao Yunzhou calmly adjusted his clothes. He jumped into the air, facing the roaring thunder, and his hair was blown out of place. Soul Douluo can fly in the air for a short period of time. The wind chime bird saw that both wings controlled the wind and emitted dozens of sharp blades. As Xiao Yunzhou approached the wind chime bird, he dodged the opponent's attack. When he was about 10 meters away from the target, Xiao Yunzhou once again used a chain to lock it to the wind chime bird's neck, and then forcefully pulled it over. The wind chime bird was unable to swing its wings for a while, relying solely on the drag of the chain. Xiao Yunzhou used gravity to squeeze the wind chime bird, pressing it to the ground and unable to move. The strength of bird and beast soul beasts landing on the ground would be reduced by half, let alone breaking free from a soul Douluo's soul skill. Xiao Yunzhou handsome fell to the ground and looked around at the soul beasts that had been disabled, beaten to half-death, or controlled by him. He patted the dust in his hands and removed the covers for everyone, saying, "Golden crocodile, deal with that southern barbarian bison." Qingluan, the wind chime bird pierced his skull. "Be careful, male lion. If you kill that fire lizard, you both belong to the fire attribute, and it is most suitable for you. The iron-armed mantis is Qianjun, and the red-haired ape subdues the demon. You all fight quickly, and later they might burp. Remember, the soul beasts must be killed by your own hands. Otherwise, it will not be able to absorb soul rings." Chapter 6. First Soul Ring. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. After listening to Xiao Yunzhou's guidance, everyone bowed to show gratitude. Then, they personally killed the corresponding soul beast and sat next to them, learning from the appearance of the light feather to draw the soul ring to the side and absorb it. Xiao Yunzhou is on the side protecting the Dharma. Although the soul beasts have been almost solved, there may be more than 10,000 years of soul beasts coming to ambush. Xiao Yunzhou also learned a lesson with blood. The scar on his cheek was caused by relaxing his guard and being ambushed after killing the soul beasts. Contrary to the strict protection of Xiao Yunzhu, Guanling is catching butterflies on the side. Rather than catching them, it's better to pat them like mosquitoes. Butterflies never know how they died. Xiao Yunzhou was speechless when he saw it. Guanling was like a living treasure, mischievous and cute. However, after Qinghuan was injured, he transformed into a cultivator full of anger. Now he can't figure out this troublemaker. Xiao Yunzhou looked around at the crowd absorbing soul rings. The straightforward and easy-going golden crocodile is the first to fall in love with problems. The calm and decisive Qinghuan only abandons his rationality when Guanling encounters danger, which Xiao Yunzhou knows very well. A male lion with a somewhat irritable temper and usually not very rational, but his own strength is extraordinary among his peers. Mischievous and adorable Guanling, aged 6 but with a 3-year-old heart, can only take Qinghuan seriously when he is in danger. Qian Jun, who is more concerned about defeating demons, likes to hold his palms upright on his chest like a monk. His hairstyles are different from those of his younger brother, and he is usually calm and disciplined like an adult. Demon slaying is like a combination of a lion and a light feather. He is arrogant and sometimes even playful, but he listens to Qian Jun's words, probably because his brother's bloodline is suppressing him. However, it was these 6 people with vastly different personalities who surprisingly formed a brotherly relationship in a short period of time. Xiao Yunzhou thought that he would probably have to pay homage to them when he arranged a table for them. Just as Xiao Yunzhou was pondering, others gradually completed the absorption of the first soul ring. Xiao Yunzhou looked around, and after these few people had absorbed their soul rings, colorful soul power still lingered around them. The golden crocodile was golden, the green one was blue, the male lion was orange, the light feathers were white, the 1,000 June blue, and the demon subduing red. Xiao Yunzhou exclaimed, "Good guy, these few people may not be a rainbow when they come together. However, this is also a manifestation of full soul power, and Xiao Yunzhu is still very satisfied." Xiao Yunzhou touched his short and black beard and said, "Don't stand foolishly, try your first soul skill quickly." The golden crocodile was the first to stand up eagerly, and the yellow soul ring rose to his waist with a regular rotation. The first soul skill, the power of the southern barbarians. As soon as the words fell, the already massive body of the golden crocodile grew larger under a layer of golden light. Its muscles broke through some of its clothes, and the golden crocodile extended its fist to hit the trunk of the towering ancient tree next to it. The sound of the collision was deafening. After the smoke dissipated, a hole was punched in the trunk of the towering ancient tree and it fell down. Xiao Yunzhou touched the fallen trunk of the tree and couldn't help but exclaim with joy. The defense of the 900-year-old ancient tree is very strong, and even ordinary soul masters cannot guarantee that they can break through the defense with just one strike. However, the golden crocodile did it and sighed inwardly as a genius. Immediately after, Qinghuan's feet lifted off the ground and flew into mid-air. There were 2 unidentified objects rotating at high speed on his hands, and Qinghuan let out a long voice. The first soul skill, the wind break light blade. After speaking, Qinghuan threw the wind blades in his palms, controlled by both hands, towards 2 towering ancient trees. The wind blades crossed and changed positions, leaving a perfect blue arc in the air. After a collision, 2 towering ancient trees that were 900 years old fell to the ground with perfect cuts. Xiao Yunzhou stroked the incision and nodded in satisfaction, waving his hand and saying, not bad, next one." Before he could finish speaking, Xiao Yunzhou could clearly feel the sharp rise in temperature around him. When he turned around, he saw a raging fire burning on the lion's body, and the heat waves rolling and spreading in all directions. The yellow soul ring spun rapidly on the lion's right arm, and the head of the flame lion could be vaguely seen on the right fist. The first soul skill, Burning Flame Fist. With a flick of the lion's right fist, the lion's head opened its mouth and separated from the lion, charging straight forward. Just as it was about to hit the ancient tree ahead, the lion's finger moved slightly, and the lion's head immediately changed its target and flew towards another tree. When the smoke dissipated, a towering ancient tree was pushed down, and flames were still burning at the broken part. Xiao Yunzhou nodded and said, "Not bad, it also has tracking effects, a rare soul skill." At this moment, Qianjun and the demon-subduing brothers stood up, waving their coiled dragon sticks, with a blue-red light shining from the corners of their eyes. Qianjun first took control of the coiled dragon stick, which spun rapidly and became increasingly huge. The first soul skill, Thunder Wanjun. The huge coiled dragon stick was used with ease in Qianjun's hands. Although it usually looked good-tempered, in fact, Qianjun's attacks were known for their strength. At the moment when the coiled dragon stick hit the ancient tree, the tree did not support it for a second before going offline. The first soul skill, Pan Long Spit's Breath. The demon-slaying dragon stick did not grow larger, but the more it emitted a glowing red ball, the more it hit an ancient tree. In an instant, a layer of red light attached to the outside of the tree. The corner of the demon-slaying mouth was raised, and the fingers were also slightly moved. The ancient tree was uprooted and floated in the air. Subsequently, the demon subdued and compared, and the ancient tree was divided into two halves, successfully offline. Chapter 7. Soul Hall Academy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Upon seeing the soul skills displayed by everyone, Xiao Yunzhou sighed in his heart. His incredible soul skills, as well as his extraordinary talent, reminded Xiao Yunzhou of the high-level members of the Elder Hall in the Soul Hall. Looking around at the towering ancient trees that had been punished by Laozi, Xiao Yunzhou waved his hand and said, "Well done. You already have your first soul ring. Come with me back to the academy." As he spoke, Xiao Yunzhou walked out, with everyone else following closely behind. On the way, Xiao Yunzhou explained, "I am the dean of the Soul Hall College. Considering your performance, it would be better to study directly in the college in the future." "Dean, do you need other procedures to enter the Soul Hall Academy?" Qinghuan asked. Xiao Yunzhou nodded and said, "Yes, as the most impressive college in the Soul Hall, the admission requirements for the Soul Hall College are very strict. 70% of the students need to be selected through an arena competition to enter the college. However, with your strength among the top two in the same age group, why not skip the Thunder Arena competition to save time?" Everyone said, "Thank you very much, Dean." Xiao Yunzhou appears calm on the surface, but has inner turmoil. Such a student who is both powerful and polite is simply rare. After leaving the Sunset Forest, Guanling found the carriage and continued to sit on Qinghuan's lap. The conversation inside the carriage was lively, while Xiao Yunzhu drove his horse in front of the carriage. In the territory of the Heavenly Sky Empire, Shaoyun Island discovered several towns near the forest with soul power attributes that had never been seen before. The soul power did not belong, but continued to spread in the air. "I just felt it in the Sunset Forest, but I didn't expect this kind of soul power to exist outside the forest." Xiao Yunzhou didn't take it to heart. The demon slaying and Guanling behind him poked their heads out and asked with a smile, "Dean, is there anything delicious in the academy?" Xiao Yunzhou helped his forehead and said, "Yes, of course I do, but I have to pay for it at my own expense." Xiao Yunzhou plans to tease these lovely students. After all, where does a group of orphans come from for money? He had originally planned to include these people in the poverty list, just use the college's assistance funds, so there was no need to worry about food. Upon hearing that money needed to be spent, Guanling and Xiaomua looked at their own pocket with a hole in it, which was incredibly cute. Xiao Yunzhou also secretly laughed, looking at their dejected expressions. Xiao Yunzhou planned to come up with a solution he had already thought of. Qingyuan couldn't bear to see Guanling feeling sad, so she touched her head and comforted, "It's okay, Big Green Bird can earn money to buy delicious food for Aling." Upon hearing Qingyuan's words, Guanling immediately hugged Qingyuan's head and said, "Great Qingyao is the best. I'll accompany you to earn money together." Seeing this, the demon turned his head to his own brother Qianjun. Qianjun closed his eyes and felt like someone was looking at him, so he opened his eyes to check the situation. As a result, he met with the adorable face of the demon. "What are you doing?" Qianjun asked. Conquering the demon, he looked at Qingyuan and Guanling, then at his brother, who was cute, and said, "Brother, you're the best. How about you go earn money to buy food then?" Qianjun raised his eyebrows and a playful thought arose in his heart, asking, "What are you doing?" "Me. Of course I helped my brother count the money," replied the demon with a smile. The golden crocodile and lion watching the play couldn't help but laugh, and this younger brother is indeed biological. Xiao Yunzhou finally suppressed his laughter and said, "You don't have to worry about this issue. We will activate the college's funds to help you. This is the funding provided by the Soul Hall to impoverished students." Guanling's eyes lit up and she once again leaned onto the car window, saying, "Thank you, Dean. When I grow up, I will definitely serve in the Soul Hall." Others nodded in agreement, and Xiao Yunzhou agreed, "Okay, work hard to cultivate and serve the country in the future." Soul Hall Academy. Xiao Yunzhou parked his carriage at the entrance of the college, and everyone got off to admire these luxurious buildings. Xiao Yunzhou walked to the door, where a muscular middle-aged man was waiting. "Lao Xiao, have you finished counting the students of this class?" Xiao Yunzhou asked. Xiao Luren nodded and said, 1378 people have registered, 965 people have been admitted, and the allocation has been completed." After that, he turned his head to look behind Xiao Yunzhou. "Dean, have they already missed the arena match? Why did you come back so late this time? You could have come back a day earlier and still catch the last match." Xiao Luren asked. Xiao Yunzhou said with some pride, "These 6 children are all rare geniuses. I helped them hunt soul rings before returning. As for the arena competition, I have decided that they don't need to participate and can directly enter the academy." Hunting for soul rings. Aren't they just awakened souls? Is it possible that they are all born with full soul power? Xiao Yunzhou nodded and said, "Of course. By the way, have you encountered any good seedlings here this time?" Xiao Luren took out a student's information from his arms and handed it to Xiao Yunzhou. Xiao Yunzhou looked at his face and showed an incredible expression. With his talent, the Pope actually sent the Soul Hall Academy directly to that academy. Wouldn't it be better? Xiao Yunzhou asked. Xiao Luren sighed and said, "The meaning of Mianxia is to follow the normal procedure and never make any special arrangements." Chapter 8. Shining Shoes. Wipe the floor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xiao Yunzhou smiled bitterly and said, Then let's wait a little longer. I'll take them in first, you go to class." Xiao Yunzhou turned around and said to the crowd, "Come with me, you will see me in the future." Everyone followed Xiao Yunzhou into the school, their heads spinning non-stop. These tall buildings were hard to see and dazzling, completely different from the small bungalow welfare home they used to live in. Xiao Yunzhou walked up to the far right dormitory on the second floor of the dormitory building, pushed open the door, and said, "This is your room, standard for a 7-person dormitory." He then yawned and left. Qingyuan keenly observed that one of the beds had already been packed, indicating that someone had already been here. Guanling and Xiaomao remained playful as ever, happily rolling on the bed. Qingyuan and Qianjun shook their heads helplessly and also found their own beds. Just after resting for a while, the door of the dormitory was kicked open by someone. The wooden door slammed into the wall, and more than 10 older boys walked towards them. The leader stepped on the bed and looked arrogantly at the 6 people resting. At this moment, a follower behind him didn't react when he saw anyone, and the atmosphere was particularly awkward. However, his handsome appearance was ignored, and he took a step forward and said, "Cough, cough, cough, are you all blind? Didn't you see the boss coming? Hurry up and welcome the boss." The voice was loud, and Guanling no longer slept with her head covered. The other people sitting in bed meditating and practicing also opened their eyes and looked at the uninvited guests at the door. The male lion is famous for his bad temper. He got out of bed and walked up to the person just a few centimeters away, either kissing or fighting. The male lion is now like a cow, panting under its nose. Although he is not that old, his height and weight are much higher than him. Others also rushed behind the lion and prepared themselves to fight at any time. The leader clearly did not expect the lion to be so big. He swallowed his saliva and quietly took a few steps back to his attendant, then pretended to tidy up his clothes to conceal the inner turmoil. The lion put his hands around his waist and snorted coldly, "What are you doing?" Perhaps due to age, the person thought that the 6 male lions were useless without soul rings. After such psychological comfort, the man in charge kissed his throat and said, "Ahem, this young master is a level 15 soul warrior. Ma Lu, the eldest son of Ma Biao in the Ma family, is also the future leader of the Ma family. Do you know the reputation of the Ma family?" The male lion didn't know about the Ma family, just stood quietly watching Ma Lu's performance. Seeing the lion without any reaction, Ma Lu was even more certain that this was a rural bumpkin who came out of an unknown village. After all, as long as they lived in the town, they had heard of the reputation of his Ma family, and those who met his Ma family would actively please them. After confirming the identities of Xiongshi and others, Ma Lu is even more afraid of offending people from any major family. Ma Lu put his shoes on the bed and looked at the lion arrogantly, saying, "Come on, shine my shoes for this young master. How about I give you 2 meals for money?" After all, Ma Lu is from a big family and definitely not short of money. The lion glanced lightly at Ma Lu's shoes, and in the next second, his veins burst out. His eyes burned with anger, and his fists clenched until they trembled. It vividly demonstrated what it means to be in the past second or in the vast sea and sky, and the next second is the end of the world. Ma Lu was clearly frightened by the change in attitude of the lion and was stunned for a few seconds before regaining his senses. When he met the lion again and faced its terrifying aura, it seemed as if a lion was standing in front of him. The male lion was so provoked that it could no longer tolerate it. A huge fist hit Ma Lu in the face, and Ma Lu angrily spat out a few back teeth, along with blood, which fell to the ground. Ma Lu was also beaten to the ground, his face tightly pressed against the floor, not to mention how embarrassed he was. Ma Lu's followers all retreated when they saw this, and even the highest-ranked Ma Lu was knocked to the ground with a punch from the lion. They must have dared not act rashly again. The male lion seemed to be struggling and crouched down to look at Ma Lu, who was lying on the ground but couldn't get up. He grabbed his head with one hand and rubbed it back and forth on the ground. "How about it? You don't need to wipe your shoes anymore. Come and wipe the floor." Wait for the lion to stop his movements, shake his hand, and then clench his fist to give Ma Lu a good time. Just as his fist was about to hit Ma Lu, Qingluan suddenly stopped the male lion from behind and whispered, "Be merciful, he may be a child of a big family, don't cause trouble." The male lion still trusted Qingluan and after careful consideration, withdrew his fist. Ma Lu seized the opportunity and struggled to spit out a few words from his mouth, saying, "What are you still waiting for? Give it to me." Upon hearing Ma Lu's command, the others looked at the 6 weak individuals in front of them, all of whom gave themselves courage and let out a loud cry to charge forward. His grandmothers, "I'm still down there, you're here." Ma Lu endured the pain of being trampled on above, but due to the noisy voice, his words didn't catch his attention and he was soon knocked unconscious. Seeing this scene, everyone else stopped hiding and revealed their own soul rings, a century-old yellow soul ring. Just when releasing the soul ring in the ghost, it intimidated those people. Although Malu had an advantage in number, some of them did not have a soul ring, while others had a 10-year white soul ring, which was completely incomparable to the golden crocodile 6. Chapter 9. Seventh Roommate. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. I had already intimidated those followers, but at this moment, I didn't know who was speaking up. What are we afraid of? We have many people, and even pressure can crush them. This sentence seemed like a stimulant, and the followers rushed forward without any hesitation. The 6 members of the Golden Crocodile didn't want to harm anyone's life. At first, they simply avoided the attack, but as time went on, they all became impatient. Just as everyone was restless, a white soul ring lit up and the person's mouth curved upwards, saying, "The first soul skill is steel and iron." The person's appearance did not change much, and others could not even tell that he had used soul skills. He secretly used soul skills and then wandered through the crowd. Qingwan blocked one person's attack and then stepped out to flip the other person over, appearing effortless in the melee. As soon as Qingwan knocked down someone, he felt a chill in his back. He quickly turned around and received a punch. He dodged the premonition and the speed of the punch exceeded his prediction. Qingwan and the person punched at the same time, and their fists collided in mid-air. At this moment, Qingwan felt as if they had hit an iron block. This person's fists were surprisingly hard and unshakable like giant rocks. After one round, the two only drew, and Qingwan sneered, "Soul technique, right?" The person chuckled and said, "So, how about my steel and iron bones?" Originally, Qingwan did not want to use soul skills, as their power was too great and could potentially cause disability and death. It would be troublesome then. He had intended to teach these people a lesson, but someone used soul skills to play with them. Qingwan's response to this was the first soul skill, the wind-killing light blade. Still the 2 wind blades, Qingwan gently threw them out, standing in place to control the wind blade's attack. The other party quickly dodged and was very passive. When Qingwan had enough fun, he lifted his hand and controlled the wind blades to both smash towards the person. This strike is considered as Qingwan's last move. He knows very well how powerful the wind blade is. If he uses all his strength, the person may not be as simple as being embedded in a wall. Seeing the collision of soul skills over there, the people here no longer tolerate it. The Golden Crocodile exerted his right fist and knocked down 3 people to the ground with one punch. The head of the male lion beside his fist rushed towards the 2 people in front of him, knocking them unconscious. The light feather froze the feet of the others, and the first soul technique of subduing demons controlled them to fly. With a swift and coordinated strike, the battle was instantly resolved. After the melee, it was a mess, and everyone saw that the opponent had nothing to fight against, so they decided to throw the person out of the room or else it would be too unlucky. Just as the Golden Crocodile turned around, a person suddenly jumped up from behind, holding a small knife in one hand and staring at the back of the crocodile's neck, wanting to kill it. This person is a fish that missed the net. He lay on the ground pretending to be dead, while others were not paying attention, just for this unexpected blow. The Golden Crocodile didn't notice either, and everyone else turned around without noticing. The person's knife tip immediately touched the Golden Crocodile's neck. The next second, the person's knife was thrown away by a flashing golden unidentified object, including the person who, in a momentary state of confusion after losing his weapon, was kicked into the wall and his ribs were completely broken. Upon hearing the sound, everyone looked back together and saw a blond boy holding a sword and knocking down a follower to the ground, along with a golden transparent sword inserted on the ground. Sensing his gaze gathering on him, the blond boy quickly explained, "Hello, I am Qiandoliu. He just ambushed you and I happened to come back to see this scene and knocked him down. It was very offensive, please forgive me." The Golden Crocodile looked at the attendant rolling on the ground, covering his chest, and pondered for a moment. Upon hearing this person's words, Qingluan guessed that the seventh roommate had been staying in this dormitory before them, and it was the Qian Daolu who had saved the life of the golden crocodile in front of them. Jean Crocodile reached out his hand and shook hands with Qian Daolu to express gratitude, saying, "Thank you, Senior, for saving me. I am Jean Crocodile." As soon as the two met, Xiao Yunzhou rushed over with the sound of the sound. What caught the eye were Ma Lu's attendant and Ma Lu, who had fallen to the ground, as well as Qian Daolu and Jean Crocodile, who stood intact on the ground. Without much time to think, Xiao Yunzhou squatted down to examine each person's injuries. Compared to the power of previous soul skills, he couldn't help but sigh. At a young age, he would control his strength and reduce the power of soul skills to prevent him from killing his opponents. This is the masterpiece of just 6 people. Xiao Yunzhou also knew about the personality of Ma Lu and had specifically looked at his personal information. He had already guessed the details of the incident accurately, but he still called Jean Crocodile to explain the whole story. Afterwards, he sent someone to take Ma Lu and his companions away for treatment. Afterwards, Xiao Yunzhou said to Qian Daolu, "Come out for a moment." Although puzzled, Qian Daolu still obediently went out to talk to Xiao Yunzhou. "Dean, what do you have to do? Is there any arrangement under the Pope's crown?" Xiao Yunzhou asked, as the personal information given to him by Xiao Luren at that time was numerous. "My father said he won't help me with anything during my studies, he will solve problems on his own, and also." After Qian Daolu explained his father's arrangement, Xiao Yunzhou also understood the general situation. Xiao Yunzhou only let Qian Daolu go a few times before letting him go. In the dormitory, 7 people introduced themselves to each other and got to know each other. At the same time, everyone also learned about the 1,000 flowing soul 6-winged angels and their innate soul power of level 20. That is to say, Qian Daolu is now a great soul master who has obtained 2 soul rings, and the golden transparent sword just inserted on the ground is his soul skill. Xiao Yunzhou and Xiao Luren sat in the office with a bad expression on their faces, as the 7,000 paths had just offended the Ma family, the strongest family in the mainland. The person who was beaten up by the lion was Ma Lu, the biological son of Ma Biao, the head of the Ma family. With Ma Lu's personality, he will not give up. Chapter 10. Apology. Impossible. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, the 7 of them went to class together, but on the way, they were stopped by Xiao Yunzhou. Xiao Yunzhou changed his usual appearance of being beaten and lifted his eyeglass frame, saying, "You come with me." The voice was very low, and no one nearby heard it. After Xiao Yunzhou finished speaking, he walked away without looking back. On the way, other students watched as everyone was taken away by Xiao Yunzhou and began to discuss, "Look, aren't these students recruited from welfare institutions? I heard they haven't even participated in the arena. Ah, the people from the welfare institution have low quality, and they caused trouble so quickly and were taken away by the dean. Isn't that right? I heard they took the initiative to provoke Ma Lu yesterday, but they never hit him and got beaten up. The dean probably wants to catch them." The voice of discussion was not low, and Xiao Yunzhou could hear it. Others could also hear it, especially when he heard words that turned black and white upside down. The lion couldn't help but want to hit someone. Upon seeing this, Qingluan grabbed the lion's arm and whispered, "Don't be impulsive. This matter may not be easy, so don't make any unnecessary mistakes." Qingluan remembered yesterday when Xiao Yunzhu saw that the person being beaten was Empress Ma Lu with a very ugly face. Combined with the serious tone she had been looking for them early this morning, and the fact that Ma Lu was the heir of the Ma family, Qingluan felt uneasy when all the signs combined. In fact, it's not just Qingluan who noticed something was wrong. Qian Daolu, Jean Crocodile, and Qian Jun also guessed it. Everyone was taken to Xiao Yunzhou's office, and Xiao Luren was also there, waiting for a long time. Xiao Yunzhou leaned against his desk, wrapped his hands around his waist, and sighed lightly, saying, do you know who hit yesterday? The male lion is too clear. He was the one who fought the person. Although he didn't remember Ma Lu's self-introduction clearly, he was still the first to rush to answer, I know. A silly dog. Upon hearing this answer, Xiao Yunzhou's eyelids twitched with anger. Before he could speak, he quickly said, Ma Lu, the son of Ma Biao, the head of the Ma family. Yes, so I want to tell you to be mentally prepared. Xiao Yunzhou's voice was extremely low. What you mean is that Ma Lu will retaliate against us. Qinghuan said, yes, Ma Biao is famous for his love for his son, which has led to Ma Lu being arrogant and unreasonable from a young age. If he suffers losses from you, he will definitely not give up easily, especially knowing that you have no background or strength. Xiao Yunzhou said at this moment, the office was unusually quiet. Xiao Yunzhou frowned and seemed to be holding something in his throat, but he could never speak. After a while, Lu Ren used a gentle tone to persuade, the power of the Ma family is not a college, let alone something you can resist. So for your safety and to avoid trouble, I suggest that you apologize to Ma Lu and we will persuade him again. This matter is considered a thing of the past. Otherwise, with the style of the Ma family, I'm afraid. It's clear that he instigated him first, and even if I die, I can't apologize to him, said the demon-slaying dragon stick fiercely towards the ground. The others nodded vigorously to show their attitude when they heard the words of subduing the demon. Xiao Yunzhou was not surprised by the reaction of the crowd, as it was normal for him to be young and full of energy, unaware of the vastness of the world. Xiao Yunzhou hoped that the 7 people would not accept Ma Lu and would rather turn around, but also hoped that the 7 people would apologize and soften to save their lives. This contradictory mentality ultimately prevented Xiao Yunzhou from making a decision. After a long time, Xiao Yunzhou slowly spoke up and said, you guys go back to class first. After everyone went out, Xiao Luren couldn't help but grab Xiao Yunzhou's shoulder and shake it vigorously. Dean, you just let them go. Xiao Yunzhou lifted his hand from his shoulder and said, they won't apologize. Do you want to see 7 corpses? By the way, Qian Dao Lu's father is not. Xiao Luren was interrupted by Xiao Yunzhou before he could finish speaking. Xiao Yunzhou shook his head and said, no, Qian Dao Lu told me yesterday that the Pope's crown will not help during his studies. If he encounters any problems, let Qian Dao Lu solve them on his own. Don't try to use the power of the Pope's crown and the Elders' Hall to handle this matter. Xiao Yunzhou continued, I don't want them to face powerful and treacherous forces in the future and only know how to compromise and save their lives. It's rare for them to just maintain the spirit of sacrificing their lives for justice. I know this is important, but the most important thing now is to save their lives so that they can have a chance to seek revenge in the future. Xiao Luren's face was already flushed with anxiety, and he kept patting the table. Xiao Yunzhou rubbed his brow and waved his hand, saying, if you try to persuade them again, I'll think of a way.